Russian Z-blogger Dmitry Borisenko has harshly criticized the Russian army command. In his recent interviews, he openly admitted that lies have become the norm in the combat zone, while real losses and failures are hidden. According to Borisenko, the command of the Russian armed forces regularly reports on allegedly taken control of populated areas, which in fact continues to be held by Ukrainian forces. In the SVO zone, there is such a concept: to take a settlement on credit. They reported that they had already taken it, but in fact, they had not yet, the blogger said. He explained that such false reports are followed by bloody meat assaults to pay off the loan. That is, to actually capture the settlement. These attacks, he said, are accompanied by heavy losses among personnel and the destruction of equipment. It happens that they take cities on credit, and then they have to pay the loans. And then meat assaults begin with huge losses and destroyed equipment, complained the Z-blogger. Borisenko also stressed that there is no point in talking about a decline in the morale of the Ukrainian army. The Ukrainian armed forces continue to actively and effectively resist. They are putting up very serious resistance. He noted, among the acute problems that Russian troops face, the blogger named a shortage of FPV drones, poor communications, and outdated equipment. However, in his opinion, the main reason for the failure is the army's failed leadership. The biggest problem is the overall command of the troops. This is the general staff, he said. In conclusion of his statement, Borisenko expressed doubt that even with a formal victory, Russia would be able to win anything. I am afraid that even if the SVO is successfully completed, it will be a Pyrrhic victory, the propagandist stated. Confessions from inside the Russian propaganda field, albeit cautious, clearly demonstrate the scale of the problems in the Russian army, from the distorted picture at the front to the catastrophic level of management. Recall, some Z-bloggers called the Russian army completely incapable of combat. This turn in the rhetoric of propagandists testifies to a deep crisis of faith in victory in the Z community.
A reconnaissance and sabotage group of the Free Russia Legion, which is part of the Ukrainian army and is fighting against the occupying Russian army, has entered the occupied village of Velikaya Belaziorka in Zaporizhia region. The sabotage group intercepted soldiers of Akhmet unit in the village located 30 kilometers from the front line. The car transporting Akhmet fighters was exploded. 3 soldiers were killed as a result. The Legion fighters, who successfully carried out the operation, returned to their positions without suffering any losses.
Ukrainian forensic expert Vitaly Levchenko told Union in an interview about the condition in which the Russian Federation returns the bodies of the deceased defenders of Ukraine, whether there are signs of torture on them, and how the identification is carried out. Following negotiations in Istanbul in late spring, a large-scale repatriation took place. Ukraine managed to return the bodies of over 6,000 fallen defenders. A complex identification process is currently underway, which, according to Interior Minister Ihor Klimenko, could take over a year. Investigators, forensic experts, and criminologists work on this every day. Their mission is extremely difficult and at the same time vital to allow people to bury their relatives who gave their lives for Ukraine with dignity. Unfortunately, the process is complicated, among other things, by the fact that the Russian side, either deliberately or through negligence, mixes up the bodies of Ukrainian and Russian fallen soldiers. This forces Ukrainian specialists to conduct additional examinations, which not only increases the workload but also significantly delays the process. Identifying such a large number of bodies is always a complex, time-consuming process. At the first stage, an initial inspection is carried out, the purpose of which is to record the numbers provided by the Russian side, check for the presence of explosive devices, weapons elements that may remain in the packages with the bodies. It is possible that items will be found that will allow us to start checking some data. The bodies are then stored in refrigerated trucks. The forensic and investigative phases of the work begin. All forensic medical examination bureaus of Ukraine are involved in this. They provide information to the main bureau of the CME on how many bodies they can accept at this time. Logistics routes are then built. The bodies from the refrigerated trucks are transported by representatives of civil-military cooperation. Forensic experts, investigators and criminologists examine these bodies, select all necessary biological samples and make a description. After the examination, the experts, depending on the situation, order and conduct various examinations: genetic, DNA, forensic, odontology, dental examination, dactyloscopy, fingerprints, etc. As identification progresses, the bodies begin to be given to relatives for burial. Thus, places for examination are freed up, and the bureaus resubmit applications for accepting new bodies, he added. Recently, the Minister of Internal Affairs, Igor Klimenko, noted in his interview that the bodies repatriated by the Russian side are in very poor condition. They were stored in inappropriate conditions. From my experience, this is how it is. They are all in a state of deep putrefaction, often skeletonized. The Russian side does not sort the bodies. There are frequent cases when it transfers 3 or 4 bodies in one package. It is also known about the transfer of the bodies of Russian soldiers by it. Therefore, it is very difficult to predict how much time it will take. The head of the Ministry of Internal Affairs announced that the identification of the bodies will take approximately 13 months. I think we will still cope faster, but it is impossible to specify the exact time, he said.